Captain Minho stared at the massive ship floating near Jupiter. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. The vessel looked like it was made of crystal and light, stretching for miles in every direction. Strange patterns moved across its surface like living art. "Sir, they're sending another message," said Lieutenant Jisoo from the communications station. Minho nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed a tall, thin creature with pale blue skin. Its eyes were large and silver, and it wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight. Behind it stood a human man in strange clothes. "Greetings, primitive beings of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. Its voice was cold and smooth. "I am High Ambassador Velkith of the Galactic Council. The human beside me is Taijin, who has already joined our great civilization." Minho looked at Taijin with disgust. The man had been missing for 3 years after his research ship disappeared. Now he stood next to aliens like he belonged there. "We bring you wonderful news," Velkith continued. "Your small world has been chosen to join the Galactic Council. You should feel honored. Not many primitive species get this chance. What exactly does that mean?" Minho asked. Taijin stepped forward with a smile that made Minho's skin crawl. "Captain, they're offering us a place in galactic civilization. Think about it. Advanced technology, medicine that can cure any disease, travel between the stars. And what do they want in return?" Minho's voice was hard. Velkith's expression didn't change. "The terms are very fair. Your world will provide 80% of its population for workforce integration. Your military will be dissolved and all weapons turned over to Council forces. Your remaining population will follow Council law and serve Council interests." The bridge went dead silent. Minho felt his blood turn cold. "You're talking about slavery." "Such an ugly word," Velkith said with what might have been amusement. "We prefer guided development. Your species will serve a greater purpose. The strong rule the weak. This is the natural order of the galaxy." "And if we refuse?" Minho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then your species will join the many others who made that mistake," Velkith said simply. "Their planets are quite beautiful now that they're empty." Taijin looked nervous. "Captain, please listen to reason. I've seen what they can do. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Resistance is impossible." Minho stood up slowly. Around him, his crew watched with tense faces. These were good people, soldiers, scientists, explorers who had dedicated their lives to humanity's future among the stars. Now they faced the end of everything they had worked for. "You're asking us to give up our freedom, our families, our entire way of life," Minho said. "You will be given new purposes," Velkith replied. "Your strong will work in our mines and factories. Your intelligent will serve in our research centers. Your young will be raised properly in council creches. It is more than most primitive species deserve." "How many species have you done this to?" Minho asked. "In the last 1,000 years, perhaps 50. The galaxy is a large place, but we are very thorough." Minho felt rage building in his chest. 50 entire civilizations destroyed. Billions of beings turned into slaves or killed. And this creature spoke about it like discussing the weather. "You have 72 of your hours to decide," Velkith said. "We will return for your answer. Choose wisely. This offer will not be repeated." The screen went dark. The bridge stayed silent. "For a long moment, sir?" Lieutenant Jisoo asked quietly. "What are your orders?" Minho looked around at his crew. These people trusted him to make the right choice. Behind them, through the viewports, he could see Earth, a small blue dot in the distance. On that world lived 8 billion human beings. His family, their families, everyone they had ever known or loved. "Open a channel to Earth Command," Minho said. "Full priority. Channel open, sir." "This is Captain Minho of the EDF Indomitable. Patch me through to President Yunji immediately." Within minutes, the president's face appeared on screen. She looked tired. It was late in Seoul where she was based. "Captain, I trust this is important." "Madam President, we have a situation." Minho quickly explained everything that had happened. As he spoke, he watched the president's face grow cold and hard. When he finished, President Unji was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Captain, what is your recommendation?" "Ma'am, they want to turn us into slaves. They've destroyed 50 other civilizations. If we give in, humanity ends. If we fight, humanity might end anyway, but at least we go down as free people." President Unji nodded slowly. "I need to speak with the other world leaders, but I think I know what our answer will be." "Yes, ma'am." "Captain, prepare a response for our alien visitors. Make sure it goes out on all their frequencies so their entire fleet can hear it." 6 hours later, the crystal ship returned. Velkith appeared on screen again, looking pleased with itself. "Well, primitive human, what is your answer?" Minho stood at attention. Behind him, his entire crew did the same. "High Ambassador Velkith, I have consulted with the leaders of Earth. We have reached a unanimous decision." "Excellent! The Council will be pleased that you have chosen wisdom over foolishness." "Our answer," Minho said clearly, "is no." Velkith's expression didn't change for several seconds. When it did, it looked confused rather than angry. "I do not understand." "Perhaps your translation systems are malfunctioning. You said no to our generous offer?" "That's correct. Earth's official response is no. We will not surrender our people. We will not give up our weapons. We will not bow to your council." Now Velkith looked genuinely puzzled. "This makes no sense. Your species is primitive. You cannot even travel between stars properly. Your weapons are crude metal and chemicals. You have no chance against council forces." "Maybe not," Minho said. "But we're going to try anyway." "This is madness," Taijin burst out. "Captain, you're condemning our entire species to death." Minho looked at the traitor with contempt. "Better to die free than live as slaves." Velkith seemed to recover from its confusion. "Very well. If you choose to resist the natural order, you will face the consequences. You have made your last mistake as a free species." "No," Minho said with a cold smile. "You made yours when you threatened Earth. You want to know something about humans? We're very bad at knowing when we're beaten. And we're very good at making our enemies regret underestimating us." The alien ship began to move away. Minho watched it go, then turned to his crew. "All stations, prepare for war." Fleet Commander Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue world in the distance. Earth looked so peaceful from space, white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. It was hard to believe such a pretty planet could house such stubborn creatures. "Status report," he ordered. 47 ships in attack formation, his second officer reported. "All weapons charged and ready," Hyunwoo nodded. 47 ships should be more than enough. The same size force had conquered the Zelthari homeworld last year, and they had been much more advanced than these humans. The Zelthari had at least managed to build proper starships before the Council found them. "Begin with their moon base," Hyunwoo ordered. "A quick victory there should convince them to surrender." The fleet moved toward Luna Base. Hyunwoo expected the humans to run or beg for mercy when they saw his ships approaching. Instead, something strange happened. "Sir, the humans are not evacuating their base," his tactical officer reported, sounding confused. "Perhaps they are frozen with fear," Hyunwoo said. "Continue the attack." Defense Coordinator Ji-won watched the alien ships approach through the observation deck of Luna Base. Around her, 300 human soldiers prepared for battle. None of them looked scared. They looked angry. "All units, this is Coordinator. Ji-won," she said into her communicator, "remember the plan. We hold this base as long as possible. Every minute we delay them is another minute for Earth to prepare." "Ma'am," said Sergeant Dong-yoon, checking his rifle, "what if they try to take prisoners?" "Then you make sure they regret it," Ji-won replied. The first alien ships landed outside the base. Strange, graceful creatures emerged, tall and thin with pale skin and large eyes. They moved like dancers, confident and elegant. Their weapons looked like works of art made from crystal and light. The battle began when the aliens sent a surrender demand. Guwon's response was a rocket-propelled grenade that destroyed their communication equipment What followed shocked the Veltar completely. The humans didn't fight like any species they had conquered before. They used every trick, every dirty tactic, every weapon they could find. When they ran out of bullets, they used knives. When they ran out of knives, they used tools from the mining equipment. When they ran out of tools, they used their bare hands. Sergeant Dong-Yun found himself surrounded by 3 Veltar soldiers. Instead of surrendering, he pulled the pins from 2 grenades and smiled at them. "Welcome to Earth," he said. The explosion took out all 4 of them. The Veltar were used to enemies who fought with honor and followed rules. Humans had no honor in war. They had only the desperate fury of people fighting for their survival. Private Kyung-soo hid in the ventilation system and dropped homemade bombs on alien patrols. Engineer Soyoung rewired the base's power systems to electrocute anyone who tried to access them. Medical officer Isiol used surgical tools as weapons and turned the medical bay into a fortress. The aliens won in the end. They had better weapons and more soldiers. But it took them 8 hours to capture a base they expected to take in 1 hour. And when they finally raised their flag over Luna Base, they had lost over 200 soldiers to 300 humans. Worse, they had taken only 12 human prisoners. The rest had died fighting. Commander Hyun-woo stood in the ruins of the command center, looking at the destruction around him. The humans had destroyed everything useful before they died. Computer systems were melted, weapons were sabotaged. Even the food supplies had been poisoned. "Bring me the prisoners," he ordered. The 12 surviving humans were brought before him. They were wounded and tired, but their eyes burned with hate. None of them looked defeated. "I am Commander Hyun-woo of the Galactic Council," he announced. "You have fought bravely, but your cause is hopeless. Surrender now, and your planet will be treated with mercy?" One of the prisoners, Sergeant Dong-Yun, laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Mercy? You mean slavery. You will serve the Council as all primitive species must. It is the natural order." "Natural order?" Dong-Yun spit blood on the floor. "Let me tell you about natural order. On Earth, when a predator threatens the pack fights back. You picked the wrong pack to threaten. Your planet has no defenses that can stop us," Young-woo said. "Maybe not," another prisoner, Engineer Nari, said quietly, "but you made one big mistake." "What mistake? You told us you've done this to 50 other species. You told us you're going to enslave our families. You told us we have no choice but to submit or die." She looked up at him with cold eyes. "You woke us up." Young-woo didn't understand what she meant. He would, eventually. Meanwhile, on Earth, the human response to the attack on Luna Base was not surrender. Every government on the planet simultaneously declared total war against the Galactic Council. Every factory that had been making cars began making weapons. Every university that had been researching medicine began researching explosives. President Unji addressed the world from an underground bunker in Seoul. "My fellow humans," she said, "today we learned that we are not alone in the universe. We also learned that the universe is full of bullies who think might makes right. They have destroyed 50 civilizations. They plan to enslave our children and turn our world into a factory for their empire." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "They have made a mistake. They think we will break because we are small and weak. They think we will give up because they are stronger. They don't understand what makes humans different from all those other species they destroyed." Around the world, 8 billion people listened. "We don't know when to quit. We don't know how to give up. When someone threatens our family, we don't negotiate, we fight. When someone tries to enslave us, we don't submit, we resist. And when someone tells us we have no choice, we make our own choices." The broadcast ended with a simple message that was sent to every Veltar ship in the solar system. "Earth to Galactic Council, come and take it." Commander Hyun-woo received the message while interrogating his prisoners. He expected the humans to be discouraged by their planet's defiant words. Instead, they smiled. "You should have taken the deal when you had the chance," Dong-Yun said. "What deal?" "The one where you just went away and left us alone. Now you're going to find out why apex predators don't make good slaves." Hyunwoo was beginning to realize that conquering Earth might not be as simple as he had thought. But he was still confident in his superior technology and larger fleet. He had no idea that he had just made the galaxy's biggest mistake. Intelligence Officer Soyeon crawled through the wreckage of a Veltar fighter that had crashed in the Amazon rainforest. The pilot was dead, but the ship's systems were mostly intact. This was exactly what Earth needed. Careful with that power core, she called to her team. If it explodes, we lose everything we came for. Dr. Kyung-soo knelt beside the alien technology, his eyes wide with excitement. This is incredible. The energy output is 50 times more efficient than our best nuclear reactors. Can we copy it? Soyeon asked. Copy it? Give me 3 weeks and I'll make it better? That was the difference between humans and every other species the Veltar had conquered. When faced with superior technology, other races either surrendered in despair or tried to bargain for mercy. Humans saw superior technology and immediately started figuring out how to steal it, improve it, and use it against their enemies. Across Earth, similar scenes played out. Every crashed alien ship became a treasure trove of advanced technology. Every captured alien weapon was taken apart and studied. Human engineers and scientists worked around the clock. Driven by desperate determination and furious creativity, the Veltar had made their first serious mistake when they underestimated human adaptability. Commander Yunwoo was learning this the hard way. His fleet hung in orbit around Earth, trying to understand why their simple conquest had turned into a grinding war of attrition. Status report, he ordered. We have lost 17 ships to human attacks, his tactical officer reported. The humans are using our own weapons against us. How is that possible? Their technology is primitive. They are dotting, sir. They take our damaged ships and somehow make them work. They study our weapons and create improved versions. Yesterday they attacked the 3rd Squadron with missiles that used our own targeting systems. Hyunwoo struggled to understand this. In his experience, primitive species either surrendered quickly or fought with their original weapons until they were wiped out. They didn't learn and adapt in the middle of a war. What about ground operations? Problematic, sir? We took Luna Base, but Earth itself. The humans fight differently than any species we have encountered. On Earth, Captain Isil crouched in the ruins of what used to be downtown Berlin. Her squad of 20 human soldiers faced a Veltar patrol twice their size. By normal military logic, she should retreat or try to find reinforcements. Instead, she did something that no Veltar commander would expect. Wujin, take your team around. To the left. Nari, circle right. When I give the signal, we hit them from 3 sides at once. Captain, Private Jisoo whispered, there are 40 of them and 20 of us. So? That means we have them outnumbered. How do we have them outnumbered? Isio smiled grimly. Each of us is worth at least 3 of them. They've never fought. Anyone who fights back properly. The attack was swift and brutal. The Veltar expected honor in combat, neat formations, clear targets, predictable tactics. What they got was chaos. Humans attacked from shadows, from rooftops, from underground tunnels. They used broken glass as weapons, turned construction equipment into artillery, and made bombs from household chemicals. They fought like the entire world was their hunting ground. When the battle was over, 38 Veltar soldiers were dead. The humans had lost 4 people. This is impossible, the surviving Veltar officer gasped as he was taken prisoner. You fight without honor. You use deception and treachery. Honor? Isil looked at him with contempt. You came to our world to enslave our children, and you want to talk about honor? Here's a lesson about humans. We save our honor for people who deserve it. For everyone else, we just win. Back in orbit, Commander Yunwoo was getting similar reports from all over Earth. His forces were winning individual battles, but they were losing the war. For every human city they captured, they had to leave soldiers behind to hold it. For every victory, they paid a higher price than expected. Worse, the humans were learning faster than his forces could adapt to their tactics. Dr. Kyung-soo stood in an underground laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps, surrounded by the most brilliant minds on Earth. Around him, captured Veltar technology had been taken apart, studied, and rebuilt. "Show me what you've got," he said to his team. Engineer Minho held up a weapon that looked like a cross between a Veltar energy rifle and a human rocket launcher. "We took their energy systems and combined them with our explosive technology. It hits harder than their original design." Scientist Hyjin showed him a small device that glowed with inner light. "This is their shield generator, but we modified it. Instead of just blocking energy weapons, it can absorb the energy and redirect it back at the attacker." "And this," said researcher Dong Yun, holding up what looked like a simple metal box, "is my favorite. It's a virus that we can upload into their computer systems. It makes their own ships attack each other." Kyung-soo grinned. This was what made humans dangerous. They didn't just fight with their original tools, they learned from every encounter, and became more deadly each time. "How long until we can mass-produce these? The weapons? 2 weeks. The shields? 1 week. The virus? It's ready now. Get them to the front lines immediately." 3 days later, the Veltar got their first taste of improved human technology. A squadron of their fighters attacked a human position in Australia, expecting an easy victory. Instead, their own weapons were turned against them. Their shields were penetrated by modified human missiles, and their computer systems were infected with viruses that made their ships spin out of control. Commander Hyunwoo watched the battle from his flagship, unable to believe what he was seeing. "Sir," his communications officer said nervously, "we're receiving a message from the human commander. Put it through." Captain Isiel's face appeared on the screen. Behind her, burning Veltar ships lit up the night sky. "This is Captain Isiel of the Earth Defense Force. I have a message for your fleet commander." "I am listening," Hyunwoo said. "We know you've conquered 50 other species. We know you think you're stronger than us. But here's what you don't know about humans. We learn from our enemies. Every weapon you use against us makes us stronger. Every tactic you try teaches us something new." She paused, letting that sink. "And you made one big mistake when you decided to conquer Earth. You gave us something to fight for, and you gave us time to figure out how to fight you. Now, we're going to show you what happens when humans decide you're a threat to our families." The transmission ended. Hyunwoo sat in silence, finally beginning to understand the magnitude of his error. His species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, by conquering civilizations that either couldn't adapt fast enough or gave up when faced with superior force. But humans were different. They didn't give up, and they adapted faster than anyone thought possible. For the first time in his military career, Commander Hyunwoo began to wonder if his fleet was strong enough to finish what they had started. On Earth, the human war machine was just getting started. Admiral Woojin stood on the bridge of humanity's first stolen starship. The vessel had once belonged to the Veltar, but human engineers had stripped it down and rebuilt it from the inside out. Now it barely looked like the original ship. "Status report," he ordered. "All systems operational, sir," reported Captain Nari. "The new weapon systems are online, and our modified engines are running at 120% of original Veltar specifications." Woojin smiled. "How did we manage that?" "The Veltar built their ships to last for centuries, so they over-engineered everything. We stripped out the safety systems and pushed the power cores beyond their design limits. This ship won't last as long as the original, but it hits 3 times harder." "Perfect. How many ships do we have ready?" 15 captured Veltar vessels, all modified, plus 30 human ships with reverse-engineered alien technology." Woojin nodded. It wasn't a large fleet, but it was enough for what he had planned. The Veltar had made a crucial mistake, they thought defensively. They came to Earth expecting to besiege a helpless planet. They never imagined that humans would take the fight to them. "Set course for the Veltar supply depot at Kepler 442. Time to show them what happens when you threaten the predator species." Across the galaxy, other species watched the war between Earth and the Galactic Council with growing fascination and horror. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained order through overwhelming force. Species that resisted were destroyed. Species that submitted were enslaved. It was the natural order of things, but humans were changing that order. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, Ambassador G1 met secretly with representatives from a dozen different species. The meeting took place in an abandoned warehouse far from Council surveillance. "You all know why we're here," G1 said. "The Galactic Council claims to represent galactic civilization, but they're nothing more than bullies with big guns." A reptilian creature named Skarn hissed nervously. "The Council has ruled for 10,000 years. What makes you think your small species can change anything?" "Because we're not trying to replace the Council's rule with our own," Jawan replied. "We're trying to end the idea that anyone should rule over anyone else by force." "Impossible," said another alien, this one resembling a giant insect. "The strong will always dominate the weak. It is the way of the universe." G1 pulled out a datapad and showed them footage from Earth's war against the Veltar. 6 months ago, the Council thought humans were weak. Look at this footage and tell me, who looks weak now? The aliens watched in stunned silence as human ships tore through Veltar formations, using tactics that no civilized species would consider honorable. They saw human soldiers fighting with desperate fury, turning every battle into a nightmare for their enemies. "Your species fights without honor?" Skarn observed. "Honor is a luxury for species that aren't fighting for survival," Jawan replied. "When someone tries to enslave your children, you don't fight with honor, you fight to win." Meanwhile, Admiral Wujin's fleet had reached its target. The Veltar supply depot at Kepler 442 was a massive space station that supported their military operations across 3 sectors. It was defended by 20 warships and was considered absolutely secure. The Veltar had never been attacked in their own territory. "All ships, this is Admiral Wujin," he broadcast to his fleet. "Remember the plan. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we make sure everyone in the galaxy knows what happened here." The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The Veltar defenders immediately detected them and moved to intercept. What happened next shocked every military observer in the galaxy. The humans didn't attack like a traditional fleet. Instead of forming neat battle lines and exchanging fire at long range, they scattered like a pack of wolves and attacked from every direction at once. Commander Neri's ship dove toward the space station's lower docking bays, firing modified torpedoes that the station's shields couldn't stop. Captain Isiel's vessel circled around the station's blind spot and launched boarding pods full of human marines. Admiral Wujin himself led a direct assault on the defending fleet, using tactics that the Veltar couldn't predict or counter. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the supply depot was captured. The defending fleet was destroyed, and humanity had announced its presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. But the real shock came when the humans broadcast their message to the entire galaxy. "This is Admiral Wujin of the Earth Defense Force," his voice carried across 1,000 star systems. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council came to our world and demanded that we surrender our freedom and our families. We said no. The broadcast showed footage of the battle, of human ships moving like living things through space, of human soldiers fighting with terrifying efficiency. The Council told us that resistance was impossible. They told us that the strong rule the weak, and that this is the natural order of the galaxy. They were wrong. More footage played showing the destroyed Veltar fleet and the captured supply depot. We are not trying to conquer the galaxy. We are not trying to build an empire. We are trying to prove that the galaxy's natural order is built on lies. No species has to bow down to bullies. No world has to accept slavery as the price of peace. The broadcast ended with coordinates and an invitation. Any species that wants to be free is welcome to join us. Any world that is tired of bowing to the Council can stand up and fight. The pack is growing and we hunt together. Across the galaxy, the response was immediate. Some species recoiled in horror at humanity's brutal efficiency. Others began to whisper about the possibility of freedom, but the most important response came from the Galactic Council itself. High Chancellor Velmuth stood before the emergency assembly, his crystalline features twisted with rage. "These humans are a disease," he declared. "They spread chaos and violence wherever they go. They must be destroyed before their madness infects other species. How do you propose we do that?" asked another council member. "We have already lost 3 fleets trying to conquer one small world." "We use the final protocol," Velmuth said grimly. "We sterilize their entire star system." A shocked silence fell over the assembly. The final protocol had only been used twice in galactic history, both times against species that had developed weapons capable of threatening the Council directly. "That seems excessive," one member ventured. "Is it?" Velmuth pulled up footage of the human attack on Kepler 442. "Look at how they fight. Look at how they turn our own weapons against us. Look at how they inspire other species to resist Council authority." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "These humans are not just another primitive species. They are apex predators, and they have learned to hunt in space. If we do not destroy them completely, they will destroy us." The vote was close, but the final protocol was approved. Humanity had 6 weeks before the Council's most powerful fleet arrived to end their species forever, but 6 weeks was a long time for humans to prepare. And as Admiral Wurgen had promised, the pack was growing stronger every day. General Sunyan stood in the war room beneath Geneva, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Veltar-controlled systems. Blue dots showed worlds that had joined humanity's growing alliance. Green dots indicated species that were secretly helping the human war effort. "Status report," he ordered. "We now control 17 star systems," reported Colonel Hyjin. 43 species have joined our alliance, and another 60 are providing supplies and intelligence. "What about the final protocol fleet?" 3 weeks out and closing fast. "Intelligence suggests it's the largest fleet the Council has ever assembled, over 3,000 ships." Sunyan nodded grimly. The final protocol was the Council's ultimate weapon, a fleet large enough to sterilize entire star systems. They had used it only twice before, both times against species that had developed technology the Council considered too dangerous to exist. "They're scared," he said quietly. "Sir? The Council, they're terrified of us. Think about it, in all their thousands of years of ruling the galaxy, they've only used the final protocol twice. Now they're using it against a species that 6 months ago couldn't even leave their own solar system properly." Colonel Hyjin frowned. "I don't understand, sir." "We're not just winning battles, Colonel. We're proving that their entire system is built on fear and lies. Every world that joins us, every victory we achieve, shows other species that the Council can be beaten. They're not trying to conquer us anymore. They're trying to destroy us before we destroy them." The truth was even more terrifying than Sunyan realized. Humanity hadn't just adapted to galactic warfare, they had revolutionized it. In 6 months, they had gone from a single world to controlling dozens of star systems. But more importantly, they had changed how the galaxy thought about war itself. Dr. Hyjin worked frantically in her laboratory aboard humanity's flagship, the Indomitable. Around her, the greatest minds of 50 different species collaborated on projects that would have been unthinkable under Council rule. "Show me what you've discovered," she said to her research team. A tall, blue-skinned scientist named Kethver activated a holographic display. "We have analyzed the Council's historical records. In the past 10,000 years, they have encountered over 500 sentient species. How many survived? 47 were allowed to join the Council as client species. The rest were either enslaved or destroyed." Dr. Hyjin felt sick. 453 entire civilizations wiped out? "That's not the worst part," said another researcher, a reptilian creature named Sithak. "We found evidence of species that developed faster than light travel, advanced medicine, even technologies that could have benefited the entire galaxy. The Council destroyed them all. Why? Because they represented change. The Council maintains power by keeping other species dependent and afraid. Any species that might challenge that system has to be eliminated. Dr. Haijin stared at the data in horror and rage. The Galactic Council wasn't just a group of bullies, they were the galaxy's greatest enemy. They had held back galactic civilization for thousands of years, murdering anyone who might threaten their control. Get this information to every species in our alliance, she ordered. Let them see what the Council really is. Meanwhile, Admiral Wujin was preparing humanity's most desperate plan. The final protocol fleet was too large to fight directly. But humans had learned something important about galactic warfare. It wasn't about having the biggest fleet. It was about using your fleet in ways your enemy couldn't predict or counter. All ship commanders report to the briefing room. He announced over the fleet communications system. 50 human and alien captains gathered in the holographic conference room. These were the survivors of 100 battles, the veterans who had learned to fight the Council's forces and win. You all know about the final protocol fleet, Wujin began. 3,000 ships, coming to destroy Earth and every world that has joined our alliance. The captains nodded grimly. Here's what we're going to do about it. We're not going to fight that fleet. The room erupted in shocked voices. Double quote, sir. If we don't fight them, Captain Isil began. We're going to hunt them, Wujin continued. The Council thinks like an empire. They send massive fleets to crush resistance through overwhelming force. But we don't think like an empire, we think like predators. He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. The final protocol fleet is powerful, but it's also slow and unwieldy. It needs supply lines, fuel depots, communication relays. While they're traveling toward Earth, we're going to destroy everything that keeps them operating. Captain Nari. Understood first? We hit their infrastructure. Cut their supply lines. Force them to split up their fleet to protect their rear areas. Exactly. By the time they reach Earth, they'll be scattered, low on supplies, and cut off from reinforcements. Then we hit them with everything we've got. It was a strategy that only humans could have conceived. Every other species in galactic history had tried to meet the Council's fleets head-on in massive space battles. Humans treated space like an ocean full of prey, and they hunted accordingly. The campaign that followed became known as the Great Hunt. Human fleets appeared across Council space like ghosts, striking at supply depots, communication centers, and isolated patrol groups. They moved faster than the Council could respond, hit harder than anyone expected, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Captain Minho led a strike force against the Council's main fuel production facility. Instead of attacking it directly, his ships hid in the system's asteroid belt and launched waves of modified mining drones that tore the facility apart from the inside. Colonel Jisu's squadron attacked a Council communication relay by disguising their ships as a merchant convoy. By the time the relay's defenders realized what was happening, their entire command structure had been destroyed. Commander Dongyun's forces captured a Council research station and discovered something that changed everything: detailed records of every species the Council had destroyed, including their technologies and achievements. The information was immediately broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time, every species could see the full scope of the Council's crimes. They learned about civilizations that could have cured galactic diseases, species that had developed clean energy, worlds that had achieved perfect peace before the Council arrived and destroyed them. The reaction was immediate and devastating. For Council authority, rebellions broke out on 50 worlds. Client species declared independence. Even some Council members began to question whether their organization had become the galaxy's greatest evil, but the final protocol fleet continued its advance toward Earth, growing more desperate and angry with each passing day. High Chancellor Velmuth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching reports of rebellions across the galaxy. How many systems have we lost? He asked. Over 200, and the number is growing, his aide reported nervously. The humans' propaganda is spreading faster than we can contain it. And our fleet. We've lost contact with 37 ships. Human raiders are attacking our supply lines constantly. Our fuel reserves are down to 60% of operational requirements. Velmoth's crystalline features darkened with rage. "It doesn't matter. Once we destroy Earth and execute every human in the galaxy, the other species will remember why they fear the Council." But deep down, he knew the truth that he couldn't admit even to himself. The humans had already won the real war. They had shown the galaxy that the Council could be beaten, that the strong didn't have to rule the weak, that there was another way to live among the stars, even if the final protocol fleet succeeded in destroying Earth. The idea of freedom would survive, and ideas once planted were harder to kill than entire species. The final protocol fleet was 3 days from Earth. When humanity revealed its last surprise, they weren't going to just defend their homeworld. They were going to end the Galactic Council forever. Fleet Admiral Jihun stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance, watching the final protocol fleet approach through the darkness of space. 3,000 Veltar warships stretched across his view screen like a wall of death. "And Starlight, all allied fleets, report status," he commanded. "Human fleet standing by," came the first response. 200 ships ready for battle. "Kethver Alliance fleet operational," reported the blue-skinned admiral who had once served the Council. 150 ships at your command." "Sithak rebellion forces prepared," growled the reptilian commander. "We have not forgotten what the Council did to our homeworld." One by one, 43 different species reported ready for battle. The combined fleet numbered 800 ships, still outnumbered. Nearly 4-to-1 by the Council forces, but Admiral Jihun was not worried about the numbers. Humans had learned something important over the past year of warfare. The size of your fleet mattered less than how you used it. "All ships, implement Formation Predator," Jihun ordered. The Allied fleet scattered across the solar system like a pack of wolves preparing to hunt. This was not how galactic warfare was supposed to work. Traditional fleet battles involved neat formations, honor-bound tactics, and predictable strategies. Humans had thrown out the rulebook entirely. High Chancellor Velmoth stood on his flagship's bridge, confident that overwhelming force would finally end the human problem. His fleet was the largest ever assembled, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. "Status report," he ordered. "All ships in attack formation," his tactical officer reported. "The human fleet appears to be ... scattered." "I don't understand their strategy." "It doesn't matter," Velmoth declared. "Today we remind the galaxy why the Council has ruled for 10,000 years. Begin the attack." What happened next became known as the Battle of Sol, though historians would argue it was less a battle than a demonstration of evolutionary superiority. The Council fleet advanced in traditional formation, a massive wall of ships designed to overwhelm any opposition through sheer firepower. They expected the humans to either flee or form their own battle line to meet them. Instead, the human fleet did something unprecedented in galactic military history. They hunted Captain Nari's squadron emerged from behind Jupiter's moons and struck the Council fleet's left flank. Before the enemy could respond, her ships had destroyed a dozen vessels and disappeared back into the gas giant's radiation shadow. Admiral Wujin's forces used the asteroid belt as cover, launching waves of modified mining equipment that the Council sensors couldn't distinguish from space debris until it was too late. Commander Isial led a boarding assault that captured 3 Council dreadnoughts and turned their weapons against their former allies. The battle raged for 18 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Council fleet had been designed to fight other traditional fleets in conventional battles. They had no answer for an enemy that refused to follow the rules. When it was over, the final protocol fleet was destroyed. High Chancellor Velmoth's flagship drifted powerless through space, its crew either dead or captured. Admiral Jihun boarded the enemy flagship personally. He found Velmoth in his command chamber, staring at the wreckage of his fleet through the viewports. "It's over," Jihun said simply. "You have won nothing," Velmoth replied, his voice bitter with defeat. "Destroy us and another species will take our place. The strong will always rule the weak. It is the natural order of the universe." "No," Jihun said. That's what you told yourselves to justify 10,000 years of murder and slavery, but we've proven something different. He gestured toward the viewport, where ships from dozens of different species worked together to rescue survivors from both sides of the battle. We've proven that the strong can choose to protect the weak instead of exploiting them. We've proven that cooperation is stronger than domination. We've proven that your natural order was just an excuse for being bullies. 3 months later, President Yunji stood before the first Galactic Assembly in recorded history. Representatives from over 200 species had gathered on the neutral world of Harmony Station to forge a new future for the galaxy. Today we begin something that has never existed before, she announced. A galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest, on justice instead of might makes right. The assembled delegates listened in fascination as she outlined humanity's vision for galactic governance. No single species would rule. No world would be forced to surrender its freedom. Trade and cooperation would replace tribute and slavery. Some of you are wondering if humans plan to replace the Council as the galaxy's rulers, President Yunji continued. The answer is no. We didn't fight this war to build an empire. We fought it to make sure no one could build an empire ever again. Ambassador, Jiwan stood up from the human delegation. We propose a simple principle for galactic civilization, the right of every sentient species to determine its own destiny. No world should bow to another. No species should rule over others through force. The proposal was debated for weeks, but eventually it was adopted as the foundation of the new Galactic Alliance. The Council's client species were given their independence. The conquered worlds were liberated. The technologies that had been suppressed for thousands of years were shared freely, but the most important change was philosophical. For the first time in galactic history, the dominant power had chosen to step back and let others determine their own futures. Captain Minho, now an admiral, stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking out at the construction of New Geneva Station, the Alliance's first joint headquarters. Ships from 100 different species worked together, building something that represented hope instead of fear. Impressive sight, said Dr. Kyung-soo, joining him at the viewport. It is, Minho agreed. Hard to believe it all started because some aliens told us to surrender. Do you think we did the right thing? Some species are saying we should have taken control of the galaxy ourselves, made sure something like the Council could never rise again. Minho was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question that had haunted him since the war ended. You know what I learned about humans during this war? He finally said, we're not naturally good or naturally evil. We're naturally adaptive. We become what we need to become to survive. What does that mean? It means that if we had tried to rule the galaxy, we would have eventually become just like the Council. Power corrupts even good people with good intentions. The only way to prevent another council is to make sure no one has that kind of power again. Dr. Kyung-soo nodded slowly. So we choose to remain the guardians instead of becoming the rulers. Exactly. We proved that humans are the galaxy's most lethal species when threatened. Now we get to prove that we're also the galaxy's most protective species when our friends are threatened. 5 years after the war ended, the galaxy had been transformed. Medical advances that had been suppressed for millennia were curing diseases across 1,000 worlds. Technologies that could have solved energy crises were finally being shared. Art, music, and literature from hundreds of species enriched galactic culture in ways the Council had never allowed. There were still problems, still conflicts between species, still worlds that struggled with freedom after so many years of slavery. But now there was hope, and there were humans who had appointed themselves the galaxy's unofficial peacekeepers. When the Regalian Civil War threatened to destroy an entire star system, human mediators helped negotiate peace. When pirates began raiding trade routes, human fleets hunted them down with the same relentless efficiency they had once used against the Council. When natural disasters struck member worlds, human relief ships were always the first to arrive. The galaxy learned that humans kept their promises as fiercely as they fought their wars. They had promised to protect the weak, And they did. They had promised that no species would rule over others by force, and they enforced that promise with quiet determination. Admiral Ji-hoon, now in his 70s, sat in his garden on Earth, reading reports from across the galaxy. The alliance was growing stronger every year. New species were making contact and joining the galactic community as equals rather than subjects. His granddaughter, young Soyoung, ran up to him with a book in her hands. "Grandfather, I'm reading about the old Galactic Council in school. Were they really as bad as the teacher says?" Ji-hoon looked at his granddaughter, born in a galaxy where freedom was the norm rather than the exception, and smiled. "They weren't evil, little one. They were just wrong about something very important." "What were they wrong about?" "They thought the strong were supposed to rule the weak. But we proved that the strong are supposed to protect the weak. That's what makes someone truly strong." As the sun set over Earth, Ji-hoon reflected on humanity's place in the galaxy. They had been called the most lethal species, and they had proven it. But more importantly, they had proven that being lethal didn't mean being cruel, and being strong didn't mean being a bully. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and for the first time in 10,000 years, every species was free to explore. Those wonders together, it had taken a war to teach the galaxy about peace, but it had been worth it.